still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. As the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend very early, because we're on a Wednesday night, which is unusual, but it's because our Christmas do, of course, is on Friday, and looking forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. But we'll start tonight just by paying tribute to the late Russell Cushion, who sadly has passed away, and 78 after a short illness. Norwich-born Russell Cushion joined the Magpies in 1971 from Norwich City, initially as assistant secretary before succeeding Malcolm Houle as club secretary 2 years later. Russell acted as United's general manager for many, many years, overseeing player contracts and transfers, which ranged from our very own Supermax departure to Arsenal through to the later arrivals of KK, of course, and Alan Shearer. Other commitments included fixture arrangement, attending disciplinary tribunals, involvement in commercial activities and ticket sales, tasks which were also covered by an ever-increasing headcount, but all passing across Russell Cushion's desk at the time. The range of activities saw him act as a spokesman for Newcastle United on subjects ranging from wrangles over the ground lease with the City Council, remember that, the reconstruction in the wake of the Taylor report, and any incidents of hooliganism were also routinely followed by statements penned by him following in the match programme. He was appointed to the board in late 1989 ahead of Sir John Hall's arrival at St James's Park, and the following year he served as Chief Operating Officer from June 2001. That was when I came across Russell, of course, when I was employed at the club as the fans liaison officer. My little tale about Russell is very simple. He came in to see me and he said, I'm Russell Cushion, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and you are Steve Wraith, who is the fans liaison officer. And I went, yes, that's correct. And he goes, you watch your back and I'll watch mine. Great words from Russell. He certainly didn't mince his words, Russell Cushion. Russell ended an association with the Magpies spanning almost 36 years during 2007 in the months following the completion of Mike Ashley's takeover. Our thoughts are with Chrissy's son and all the family at NUFC Matters. We wish you all the best and hope that our little tribute goes a little way to helping you feel a little bit better. He was a true Newcastle United man, and he never let the club down and never tarnished the club's reputation. So you can hold your heads very, very high this evening. Memories, Russell Cushion, Mitch. I mean, it's a name which we all used to know, of course, at the club.
If you wanted the definition of the word stalwart, somebody who was always there and knew how Newcastle United ticked in every way, shape, of form. You're quite right, never disgraced the club, never let us down. And could have easily been ditched by Sir John during the Magpie Group takeover, but he impressed them so much, he was seen as key to be being kept on. And there's not many people do that in big takeovers like that. That's probably the biggest measure of the man, was that he impressed the incoming buyers so much that they said, no, we need this guy on side. And so we're through some amazing periods of in times of growth and change. It's just a shame he couldn't see we're past the Mike Ashley era.
George?
Yeah, my meeting with Russell coincides with the work I used to do with the Sports Council with the one and only Malcolm Dix. And when Malcolm Dix was around, sometimes he used to organise meetings at St James's Park, and inevitably overlapping meetings he'd already had with Sir John Hall. So I used to get to meet Sir John and Russell Cushion and others just as a sideline of all the other things I was doing. But all I can say from the outset is straight as a die, nice man, gentleman. And the other thing I would observe is that a Norwich man who came to Newcastle, but got infected by the black and white blood. You know, he was a truly black and white man. There was no question about that. And it doesn't always happen, but to those that are really switched on, they get this link with the club and the city and all the rest of it. And Russell certainly did. I'm sure I helped a lot by people like Malcolm Dix and Sir John Hall. So my links, very positive, always an extremely pleasant person to be with, you know, no side or anything at all, forever telling you who he was or what he was. He just got on with everybody and got on with his own job. And what a good job he did. Newcastle owed him a great debt, really, by the time he left us. I didn't realise it was as much as 30-odd years. Well, that's 30-odd years that did Newcastle no harm whatsoever. And indeed, Steve's right. It's just a pity he wasn't there a bit longer to try and guide her through the Ashley years. So everything about that I can say is positive. It was positive to me and positive in any environment I was in at St James's Park. And my memories of him always be good ones, happy ones. And his family deserve to be happy tonight and proud that what Russell did for the club and the city and how much Geordies like me appreciate it.
Stu, we will come to Alan's post, obviously, but we wanted to pay respect to Russell Cushion first. Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts when you hear of the passing of Russell?
I never had the pleasure of meeting Russell in person, but growing up, he was always one of the constants of the club. Now, he was like part of the furniture, wasn't he? It's when at the start of any season, when maybe it was just me being a bit sad or addicted to the club, you start like looking at who is in what position, and whether it was a mag or it was a fanzine or shoot a match or even the Chronicle, the Pinks, his name was always there, and you can't say he was anything but a club man. I mean, as you said, Steve, 36 years, he spanned decades at that club, and you can't be bad at your job to last that long in it. And I'm sure if you wrote a book, it would have been a bestseller, because you just think at the time that he was within, walking down the corridors of St. James, how much he would have seen, and heard and been aware of. And back in the day, there was no things like NDAs. He could have made a fortune out of it. But again, his loyalty was to the club. And I was always at this time, my thoughts are with his family, and may he rest in peace. And I don't want to take up too much time with someone I've never personally met, but I'll pass it to Steve, who I know would have met him. I'm more than sure would have met him, and he'll be able to expand on in more detail.
I didn't
You-
reach this question, believe it or not.
No?
But no, never ever crossed my path, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, I think I'm pretty right on that. But what it was a name, and I mean, he was part of the fabric of Newcastle, as you said, part of the fabric of the club. And he was one of those names that kept cropping up time and time and time again when you were younger. And you always wonder, well, who's this bloke? Who is he? It's like Russell Cushion again. Russell Cushion. He's not the manager, he's not the chairman, but the name. It just always, it seemed to be synonymous with anything that was mentioned, whether it was a signing, whether it was a manager coming in, a manager going, there was a comment from him. Like you say, Steve, incidents involving fans, the crowd trouble in Nottingham Forest. I think he probably was the man, if I remember rightly, who had to go down to the FA and all of those type of situations that he had to cope with and come back and explain. And you're right, Stu. I'm 36 or 38 years at the club. That spans generations. When you look at the number of managers alone that we went through over that period of time, you think he was there when Joe Harvey and it took over, or was manager of the club just after the first club. Harvey was the manager, and he's still there at like sort of Glenn Roeder time, and Souness and people like that. All those years later, and it would have certainly, well, whether it would have been a bestseller, I'm not too sure, but it would have been an enthralling read. I know that for a fact. If he had put down on paper everything that he knew about the machinations in the back room of Newcastle United, because you think of everything that went on with the Magpie Group, all of the shares situation, the number of chairmen that we had that came in and left, directors that were in and out, the way that McKeague tried to manipulate the situation, the way that Malcolm was manipulating it on the other side, and then Sir John Hall coming in, Freddie Shepherd, all of that. It must have been a fascinating time. And as you say, what the guy did was he actually followed, believe it or not, he followed the same path as Lee Charnley. Charnley started off as assistant secretary to Russell Cushing, and then
That's right. He used to make his cups of tea.
Yeah, he was making the tea for Russell at the time.
He had to make me one for the meeting that I had with Russell that day. It was Lee Charnley making the cuppas.
That he actually made a decent cup. I remember him being at the food bank and he made some decent cups of tea for us. Like when we write our book, it'll be in there about him making cups of tea.
Coming soon.
When you think about it, I mean, that was the path that Charnley followed. As Russell moved on through the club, Lee moved on through the club, and whether you like it or not, that's the situation that occurred. But very, very sad to hear, and no age either. No age. I mean, 78-year-old is nothing these days. For someone, and it's sad, and I've got pay all my respects to the family. It must be a difficult time for them.
Yeah, certainly is. Rest in peace, Russell. Okay, we're going to move on, and we've got to say, Barry, this was going to be our second topic tonight. Well done to Scotland, Stu. Rather watch them at the World Cup than England, says Barry. What a game! What a game, Stu! What a game! I mean, that goal from McTominay, which you could do that 100 times and he probably wouldn't do it. But what a finish! It was Rooney-esque, wasn't it? Like that goal he scored for Man United. But I guess the biggest talking point, especially with the way that you've championed the player for years now on this platform, is Tierney's goal, which ultimately was the winner. The fourth goal was just the icing on the cherry and another Schmeichel chipped. But it was, what a goal Tierney scored. So you're there, mate. You're there. What was your night out like last night?
Well, it finished about 3:00 this morning. My alarm went off at 6. So today's been a bit of a blur. But I do have my hat on. There we go. And I've got my scarf. And I've got my Hendrix here, which is Scottish. I've got my Tunnix caramel. I've got my Tunnix tea cake. So we're all in.
Well done, mate. Good props.
as it happened yesterday, of course, it dominates your mind like any big game, whether it's club or country, but there's always been, for me, a correlation between Newcastle and Scotland. Is like they build your hopes up and then just dash them at the very end. And I've been fortunate enough over the last couple of years. As you know, I went to the Euros last year and was in a privileged position to get seats through you know who, and that was something I never thought I'd see. Is my team at a major championship, so that was like a huge box ticked. And then Mitch and myself were at the world title fight in Saudi for the first Usyk and Tyson Fury fight. Again, it was the fight of the century, wasn't it? It was to unify the belts. We were there. Then earlier this year, we were sitting next to each other. I was standing next to each other. It was at Wembley, and I'm sure the bruises have now receded from his arms. So, everything that you wanted to do as a fan, I'd done. And the last thing was to be able to go and watch Scotland in the World Cup. And I've had years and years, as Newcastle fans have, of glorious failure. And then yesterday, for some reason, I wasn't nervous. And my plan was I'd finish work at 6, which is like 3 o'clock your time. I'd get home, have something, have a shower, get the Jaeger bombs down, and then just get settled down. But I didn't finish work till 9 or 6 your time. So I raced home, still did the Jaegers, had a shower, forgot to eat, straight on at the Hendricks. But what a rendition of Flower of Scotland that was. I know the last summer JC talking about the one at the Switzerland game when I was there with my brother, how the hair stood in the back of his neck and he's not even Scottish. That for me, I wouldn't say it surpassed it because I wasn't there. But I sent you a clip of a YouTube clip, didn't I, on the group this morning. It was astounding, and it shows the differences, and it for me it gives you what sport's about. We can go down the VAR route and corruption and stuff like that, but this is 11 players who aren't the best, who collectively come together and achieve something massive. Now, for England, if we're going to make a comparison, it's with the talent you've got, you'll qualify every year. And what I will say is the way England have qualified for this World Cup campaign, irrespective of who they played, to win every game and not concede a goal. Everyone says, but they were playing bad opposition. But look at the other top teams, so were they, and they didn't achieve what England did. So I'll say kudos to them, but the excitement just to qualify, it shows the big gulf between the teams. But it shows what it meant. I'm sure everyone's seen videos and clips on any social media or on the mainstream media today. It's hard to explain, and no doubt we'll get there, and everyone's going to say we'll lose every game. But I've seen Scotland score in major championships. I've seen them get a point, etc. The next stage now is to win. But for professional reasons, I probably won't be able to go. That's what I was saying yesterday afternoon. But all day today, I'm thinking, right, I have to get there for one game. So wait till the draw comes on the 5th of December. We'll find out where we're going. But when the first goal went in, after the Flower of Scotland, even people who aren't Scottish, who have no affiliation to Scotland, were sending me WhatsApp saying that was really, really rousing. It was incredible. And it shows what it meant to the nation. And I do know all the words, as Mitch will vouch for, but I'm sure I don't want to close your channel down by trying to sing it now, because Mrs. P's sick of it because I was singing it for about 3 days in a row before the game. But after 3 minutes, McTominay scored that goal. And I tell you now, if that had been Ronaldo, they'll still be showing it for the next 6 weeks on every single stream you could find. But because it's Scott McTominay in Scotland. But what I said to anyone who would want to listen, that goal was worthy of winning any game, and it was. But as to cut to the end, as it unfolded, for the tap in from Lawrence Shankland, who plays for Hearts, that could have been the one that would have been forged in Scottish memory. He would have been the hero. to put us 2-1 up. And then, again, in typical Scotland style, they concede against 10 men. We're in injury time, and it's another glorious failure. And then you start thinking, who are they going to get in the playoffs? No, in Scotland, they'll get Italy, who at that stage had won 8 out of 9 games. And you just start expecting, or not expecting, you just come to terms with the worst. And then this left back, I forget his name now. There was a left back that come on for right back to play at right back because he's 2-footed. Tyne, I think it's called. I don't know. I've never mentioned it before. But as the ball came to him, do you know what it is? It went in slow motion, but I knew he would score. And again, Mitchell vouched when we're watching games. I tend to cheer before the ball hits the net, as if like I've seen it. And I was up, and really I felt like putting a letter through the neighbour's door this morning to apologise for the roar that was to come out of us. But I knew he was going to score because he's great with both feet. And the composure he showed, bear in mind he's coming in on the right-hand side, he's predominantly left-footed, but he can't kick with both. And it went in. Well, I won't swear, but you can imagine the profanities that were coming out of my mouth and of just sheer joy and exuberance. And then the last one, the last goal, when they were, it got clear, and you think this is just going to drop for them, and they're going to get an equaliser right at the end. And then when he came out, and now Kenny McLean's is only going to be before that 95th, 96th minute effort was never going to be one of the heroes in Scottish history. You know, he's never going to be the annals of Scottish history for being one of the best footballers. But he'll always be remembered now. And it was just like, put the ball in the corner, because everyone was like forward for Denmark, weren't they? They were chasing the game. Just kick it to the corner flag. Well, no, he showed composure beyond his ability, with the greatest respect to him. And the way he dummied the player, and he's seen Schmeichel, and as you said at the start, Steve, it's not the first Schmeichel to be chipped that's given me so much joy. And when it just bounced and went in the net, you know, the sheer joy, and you've seen it in the fans, and that's just to qualify. That's what it means. And you've seen other countries around the world who don't qualify often, what it means to people. And it brings back a lot of belief in football, and it is the people's game, because these don't get paid that much to represent the country. You know, they were doing it out of pure pride. And for once, they didn't fail at the end, and they have made the country proud. And I'm struggling now, but last night genuinely was lost for words. It'll be probably, you can't say it's the greatest night, because that's enough to qualify. But the fact it's been, or it will be, 28 years. It's a generation since Scotland were last in the World Cup final. You know, it was an amazing moment, and with 3 goals, as I said earlier, were more than enough to win any game. It was just amazing, and fair play to them, because Greece aren't a bad team, as England found out. Denmark aren't a bad team, as England have found out. And this isn't a slight at England. I'm just showing the level of competition that this togetherness Scotland had to overcome these in the group and then top it. It's been incredible. So I'm sure you've heard enough about me slavering on about how wonderful Scotland were last night. So for once, I'm going to sit back and let you tell me how wonderful Scotland were.
I don't think we can dedicate a whole show to that. God, it's bad enough listening to you going on for 10 minutes about it. Come on, England. Come on, England.
Best bit of that, Alec, is, I don't know if I can go to the World Cup for professional reasons. If you're not at the opening game of the World Cup for Scotland, I'll bear my arse and Phoenix Window, mate. I know you well enough. You'll be bloody there.
Just don't do
Phoenix
it on the
will be
podcast.
safe, I think. Phoenix will be safe.
Actually, the interesting thing about this international break, when the teams are away, Stu, the anthem, I mean, Flower of Scotland last night was just out of this world, and always placed the head back on my neck, standing end. But I was curious as to see some of the others as well. But what did Albania do to the English anthem? I thought that was just diabolical. You had 2 blokes singing it, 2 tenors singing it. One of them looked like Uncle Fester out of the films, and the other one looked like Hoss out of Bonanza. And I don't think I heard them sung before. It was bloody awful. Don't know what the king would think about it, but it was quite amusing.
I think you misunderstood, George. They weren't tenors, they were paid a tenor.
Well, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, as always, we'll get through a lot on the Amigos. We're going to have one of these. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. Can be anybody, a player, it can be a manager, whatever. We had 2 great photos from Jack Thompson. Thank you for these, Jack. At the training ground, young Jack at the training ground meeting Barry Venison. Fantastic. Barry was always a bit of a trendsetter there, wasn't he? I love that photo as well. You can just see people queuing up with shirts and that to get signed. That's what Castle was all about. That's what
denim as well, Steve.
Yeah, all denim, double denim. Only Barry could get away with that. I don't think he wears the double denim these days, but yeah, great photo. And the late great Pavel Cernacek with Jack as well, and his brother, I think it is there. Again at Maiden Castle, and that's what Kevin did. You know, he used to allow the access, and great photos. Just, you know, especially with everything that's going on nowadays. You know, people being asked not to go to the training ground and stand outside. Takes you back to yesteryear when things were, dare I say it, a little bit better and a little bit different. If you've got a photograph you'd like to share with us on NUFC Matters, email us nufcmatters1892@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook page. We've got 7,000 subscribers on there now. Big thanks to everybody who's joined that. And you can just stick them on there. I will pick them up off there in due course over the next week. And maybe it'll be you featured on the show next week. And speaking of yesterday, Warren Barton, I was with him today. I popped into the back page in Newcastle. He signed about 44 of the Entertainers books that Will Scott wrote and we published last year for him. But Warren is in great form. I do know he's on at the Tyne Theatre tonight, actually, with Kieran Trippier and Stuart Pearce. I did pass on my best to Stuart Pearce. He's had that tragic news himself, of course, over the last couple of weeks. But yes, he will be joining us at our Christmas do, which is this Friday. Tickets are £12. You can still buy tickets today and tomorrow. nufcmatters.co.uk. Tickets are £12, and all tickets are going towards Age UK, North Tyneside Dementia. We'll be doing some fundraising on the night time, so make sure you bring a couple of quid for the raffle. And there will be a memorabilia stall there as well. I think we've done about 60 tickets for that, which is pretty good. We know it's hard for people to spend money on these kind of occasions, but a lot of the usual faces coming. I know our designer Rob Maltman's flying over for this one. I'll be there. Steve Hasty will be there. George will be there. So and a lot of the moderators are going. I know Mozza and Denise and Alan are going as well. I think Roger Cook in the chat, he's going. Dunnell's coming, of course, who's been on the fans forum many times. So it's going to be a cracking night. And of course, we've got Sid, who does Tuesdays Talk of the Tune. He's going to DJ on the night. And young Adam Henderson, who's become a valuable member of the fans forum. He's going to come along and play some of his music. He's got a music career which he's chasing, and he's at the very start of it, but he's going to come along and play a few songs.
Darren's going as well.
Big Darren's going as well. George's Minder's going as well. So there we go. Good to see. So yeah, get yourself along, get your tickets online if you haven't already, and please as well, if you like reading and like reading about events, my book and Singer's book is out now. We will be selling copies at the do on Friday. The promoter and the photographer, it's a tenner. 25 years of bringing stars to Tyneside. Features a lot of stories about Newcastle United players. Pavel Cernacek, of course, Gaza, Alan Shearer, Peter Beardsley. Some great stories and recollections from events that we've done. And all proceeds from that book are going to Age UK as well, North Tyneside, the dementia side of things. Sonia Rowe will be coming along from the charity as well on Friday night to tell you where the money's going to. I had a lovely email from her this week to say that the money that we raised from the fanzine actually paid for all the residents from the dementia centre to go to Beamish last week. They went along to Beamish, had a great day out. that's what I like about this charity. That tell us where the money's going to. It's not just a thank you, we're going to take your money and there's a receipt. I'm actually getting updates as to what they're doing. They've been out twice, the residents. It's given them a bit of a life. So thank you everybody who's chipped in. That is wonderful. Okay, where do I go next? Well, Jeff Smith is watching live on Facebook, our Facebook page tonight. He says, "Hi boys, can I ask what your views are on Cabbage Heed getting on the likes of Talk Sport and still claiming to be the saviour of Newcastle United, advising to speak to Eddie Howe?" I mean, our ex-managers are always in the media. Some great little comments coming in the chat about Steve McLaren stepping down from the Jamaica job. He's literally all he got out of that was a tan. Some people asking if he can speak the lingo. But Steve Bruce, when he's not working for a club, Mitch, he's constantly on a merry-go-round of TV. I guess he does this to promote himself, to try and get another job. But he's literally inventing. He's inventing things, isn't he? He's creating it. He's creating something which didn't happen.
Made even worse by a proliferation of podcasts. So he's been on the Schools and Butts, one that they do with Paddy McGuinness, where he was basically able to rewrite history and wasn't checked at all. And that's where this started. Was he did the podcast itself's actually not a bad podcast.
Mm-hmm.
However, what he does is absolutely, and this is what he's got a history of doing. And before people start, it's not just Newcastle United fans. If you talk to fans of other clubs that he's been at, he does exactly the same thing. He has an ability to rewrite history and make it sound vaguely convincing. And he has enough friends in the media still because of the Man United and Sir Alex Ferguson connections, who will then act as a friendly echo chamber. Does it help him get other jobs? No, I think he'd still get other jobs without that, mate. I think he's part of the old boys club who will have a network, who will always have an ability to get a job somewhere. But what I don't like is that there's plenty of people in the media could call this bullshit out now. And it's not, it's left to us. And then we end up looking like a bit of Newcastle fans who chased them out anyway and da-di-da-di-da. We know what he's saying is, to quote Mr. Patterson, absolute horse shit. I think that's. I don't think I could put it any more or less eloquently myself. But he does have this amazing ability to rewrite history at times. I turned Joe Linton into a midfielder. No, he fucking didn't. No, you really didn't, mate. Give it a rest. I recommended Eddie Howe to Newcastle United. Well, you might find I'd actually spoken to him twice before that. Any point of interaction with you.
Once before he got sacked.
Aye. And the only thing he says that's true was Newcastle United did a really graceful thing and let him have his 1,000th game as a manager. And I now wish they'd just tell them to fuck off and left them on 999. Because if that's how you repay Newcastle United, by trying to steal other people's glory and making up little stories, it's such a shame his son's no longer on social media to be there to defend him anymore, because even he seems to have disappeared now because there's only so much you can defend. But I think it's sadly he has enough allies in the media that gets, there's a friendly echo chamber to amplify that, and nobody's there to correct them and nobody's there to challenge them. And those stories will go unchallenged on podcasts like that, because the Man U Old Boys Network.
George, I mean, I remember the quote. This is a quote from Steve Bruce, and it's not "How's the bacon?" Did you say it was Joe Linton, Big Joe? Yeah, there's a player in there somewhere. That was
Big
what he
Joe.
said. He didn't know. He didn't know what player he was. He just said there's a player in there somewhere. And I remember me and my mate used to sit there. I mean, literally, this is when we were getting 43,000 people sitting watching the match. I literally had my arms behind like that, and I had my feet dangled over the seat in front. That's how quiet St James's Park was when Bruce was managing, and you could see him standing talking to his assistants. I said they're probably actually ordering the food for tonight. You know, talking about what they're getting at the kebab shop because they didn't know what tactics were. Unbelievable, George Bruce, but he is making a career of bad mouthing Newcastle at times.
Well, all the time, and it irritated me in as much that you're just talking about Joe Linton, and my Joe Linton story you've heard before. I mean, I used to come home from matches, and my Marge used to say to me, "You don't like that lad, do you?" And I used to say, "Well, I don't know why they wash his bloody shirt because he's never done anything today," and he was just a disaster, absolute disaster. But the one Joe Linton thing I do remember with Bruce, I've said it on here and other places before. We were trying to think who we were playing. It might be one of the big teams, either Arsenal or it might even have been Manchester United. Anyway, there was a horrendous collision on the field, and Joe Linton got the worst of it because he didn't pull out, and it looked like he could have broken something. And then he was struggling to walk, and all you could hear was Bruce on the line shouting, "Run it off! Run it off! Run it off!" And you think, well, you know, that's a £40 million bloody footballer. He might have a broken foot. For God's sake, somebody go and have a look at it. And he's shouting, "Run it off!" So that's the level of Bruce that I know. The other thing, of course, is that the irritating for me is that because I live so close to the training ground, I used to see some of his disasters in his pre-season training. You always used to have this mini Olympics where he used to have the whole squad running 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters, 1500 meters. And then the big one was the 3000 meters. They all had to do that, all timed to see who was doing what. Well, sometimes it was a disaster. You've got people like Wilson and Dwight, what's his name? Dwight Gale, who have very sensitive muscles and tendons, and the last thing they need is to be running 3000 bloody meters. The number of times that I've gone out in my front garden in the morning, and there's Gale and Wilson hoying the breakfast in my front garden off the fence because they were absolutely cream crackered. And that, you know, they're the typical things. And I can remember saying, maybe when I first joined the challenge, saying, what the hell does that bloke know about training or anything else? Because what he's doing at the moment is out of the arc. Not even the people I work with treated people like that. So yeah, he's a has been, but you used to say has been gotten out. Well, he's certainly not that because he's a has been. He's got lots, and the trouble is, all the stories he's telling is making him even more. He's getting wealthy on stories that aren't even stories, which is a sickening trend. And of course, Whaley's got all these friends from Manchester United and other journalistic places that know him and treat him well. He'll be around for a while, and he'll get other jobs as well. You know, Neil's right. It's not too long that he got the push at Blackpool, and already Blackpool fans are saying, "What the hell did we have him for?" You know. So yeah, it just he's a walking disaster. But the trouble is, with friends in high places, friends in the press, he'll go on and do it for another few years yet.
Yes, Stu. I mean, this whole thing that always used to wind me up was that you watch his interviews. He's never ever said he's a Newcastle fan. Some people almost in the media say that he's a Newcastle fan. What he's always said is, me mum and dad were Newcastle fans, but people have always alluded to that he was. But as soon as he took the job, I think we put something out. I can't remember what it was now. I put something out on my social media. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a screenshot of the Journal. When he took the Sunderland job, and it was, this was his dream job. He never wanted to manage Newcastle. Now I know you've got to say that maybe when you're going to Sunderland, but Nah, that didn't do for me. Like, and I didn't want him at the club in the first place, and I was glad to see the back of him. And I don't care what anyone says. And I know a lot of the ex-players have got a lot of time for him, and I know you're close to one or two of the lads, you know, who probably are probably good friends with him. You know, I mean, I've obviously worked with a lot of Newcastle players who speak very highly of Brucey, but not as a Newcastle manager.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Steve, if my boss gave me 3 days off a week, I'd think the world of him as well. But this is why a lot of people who we speak to face to face, I think this is why the fans of the show and will have such a good following, because we do break the odd exclusive, and George has just done one there inadvertently. He's just explained to us all how Joe Linton's first child was born. He didn't pull out. So that was good to know. That's a challenge, obviously. So, but carrying on from what you said there, do you know, when he was probably the most underwhelming appointment in my time of watching Newcastle, and I'm sure that for most people watching the show, even more so than McLaren, even JFK, there was an air of acceptance that it didn't matter, you know, who we done. We just knew it was going to be done to spite us. But we didn't want him, even when it was touted that he was going to get the job. He didn't want him, not because he managed Sunderland, that might have been part of it. Not because he played for Man United, that might have been part of it. But he's not good at his job, and that was it. And it was quite clear because of what happened with Rafa that he was a yes man, and the way he left Sheffield Wednesday was the way he's left many other clubs beforehand. He's just chased I know we talked about it on the professionals on, was it Sunday we did it, about loyalty. This man's shown no loyalty, but expects it all the time. And there was a comment in the chat there that he's been paid more in compensation than he has in salaries in his managerial career. You know, so I would employ him. Honestly, I would he's got to be a top salesperson because he says it with confidence and he says it with conviction. Yeah, I think so many times he's that deluded. He actually believes what he's saying, or he's convinced himself that much. But I'm sure I'm not alone when I have the misfortune of listening to him on TalkSport and, you know, with the false Geordie accent and stuff like that, or the posh Geordie accent. And he's like, no, that didn't happen. No, that's not true. No, that's not how it was, you know. And as Mitch said, no one pulls him up on it. No one says, well, Steve, actually, this isn't the case. And yeah, you can have friends in the media, but for any club, for me, after his tenure at Newcastle, I think the West Brom was the next one. More fool them. More fool them for being hoodwinked into thinking that this man can enhance your club in a positive way, because he might be a great person, and this is not me attacking him as a person, it's attacking him as a manager. And he might have had one decent season, and let's say at Wigan, but that doesn't, he's what's he called, like 25, 30 years out of managerial seconds. It's incredible. But when everyone says he's a wonderful person, I would ask them to go and canvass his tenants in the Midlands area, how wonderful he is as a landlord. But that's another debate. For me, I can't envisage any right-minded football chairman thinking this is the solution to our problems, unless it's like we can't get the buffet finished and it's costing us money. That's the only way he would be the solution to the problem. A bit childish, bit tongue-in-cheek, but probably factual. And it's really, really poor fare from TalkSport and the likes that actually put him on. That's just my opinion. And it just stinks of jobs for the boys. And really, if he gets employed again, as I said, more fool them. And my extreme sympathy goes out to the supporters of that football club if you were to get another job.
Yeah, Steve, I think a lot of the time that Brucey gets a contract, the rumour is that he goes in cheap, but his severance pay is where the sting in the tail is. And I think Ashley, I don't know whether Ashley got stung on that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, you know, but bringing him in. Yeah, well,
BRF did, didn't it? 8 million.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's maybe that was in his mind. Maybe he was thinking of selling the club when he brought Bruce in. But yeah, he got him in on a cheap wage. That's the rumor. That's how he does it. And then the big payoff for Steve Bruce is always at the end, you know. And I guess any club that takes him on face value and when he passes the interview kind of thing, and look, anyone looking at his CV must go, dear God, you know, all there is doom, gloom, and relegation, with the exception of Wigan, of course.
Yeah, exactly, Steve. I mean, let's remind us about Steve Bruce's time at Newcastle. 28% win rate. That's what he had at Newcastle.
Forgot that.
That's really, really bad. Where were we when he got sacked? We were 19th in the league. You know, that's another fact that Bruce has forgotten all about. He's put over an idea that he only left the club because we've been taken over. And if we hadn't been taken over, he would have still been there. You know, that was another side of it. Despite the fact that we're sitting 19th in the league, I don't think so, Steve. He said he was a victim of circumstance. You know, that was another thing. And he also stated
the circumstance being we were 19th in the league.
Exactly. He also stated, no word of a lie, he stated that he was there simply to keep us in the league. You know, he convinced himself of that. There's a little piece here. I just want to read this out here, guys. This was Dwight York on his Facebook page a few months ago, and he said this was at Newcastle at half-time away to Man City. He says it were about
Dwight Gale, Steve. Dwight Gale.
2 or 3-0 down at half-time, and he was like, "Boys," and I'll quote him, "You keep asking about tactics. I don't do tactics. Just put your boots on and work hard." That was like the sum of his abilities as a coach. And that's probably because he only did the 3 days, as you said, Steve. I mean, you look at, you're talking about the situations that he's got himself into in the media, but I listened to, Simon Jordan. Simon Jordan's slagging him off. Now he's on TalkSport, and Simon's had some sort of, sort of homecoming with him, hasn't he? And it's now like, well, we didn't get on for a while, but now we're meeting in the studio and we're kind of teammates across the table here. We've let bygones be bygones. He absolutely slaughtered the bloke, when he sacked him at Crystal Palace. But he did have a history of just moving on and moving on and moving on when it suited him. If he didn't get the sack beforehand, he would find a better job and he would move on. And he dropped people I think he dropped Huddersfield in the Clarts. I think he dropped Birmingham in the Clarts. He certainly dropped Sheffield Wednesday in the Clarts when he came to us. There was a history of it. He's just failed again at Blackpool. And now he's doing the media rounds because, like all things, they're hoping, he's hoping that if he gets out there and keeps his name in the frame, there will be somebody in the Championship who'll get the sack and he'll step in. I bet you he was praying that it would have been Steve Gibson down at Middlesbrough, but thank God Steve Gibson's got a bit of a brain about,
Can you imagine him going there and getting the hat trick of the North East clubs?
Sorry, Mitch.
Can you imagine him going there and him getting the hat trick of the North East clubs?
Oh,
Jeez.
yeah, well, that's the craziest thing. But like I say, thank God, it's best to just move on from Bruce, isn't it? We know what we had to put up with. We've seen the turnaround that we've had under Eddie. We would never have had this under Steve Bruce if he had stayed and been given the money, as he probably claims he should have been with PIF. It was never going to happen. It would never have been a success anyway.
Christ, imagine if he got £100 million to spend.
Oh, well, can you imagine?
My God.
City Takeaway would be delighted, wouldn't it?
I had somebody in the media here not so long ago trying to tell me he was a great appointment for so many Championship clubs because, quote unquote, he's got the most amount of teams promoted from the Championship. And I had to say, yeah, because he's relegated most of them there first and they couldn't afford to sack him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mitch, he's probably one of the originators of fake news, wasn't he? Well before Donald Trump said it. I think Bruce was pumping it out for ages. And you remember that interview we did after one game? And he said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to going home." I went home was Cheshire to my wife's apple crumble. And then he was having the Monday off. The players having the Monday off. The coach was doing the job on Tuesday. He do 2 days a week plus the match. And you wondered why the players weren't fit or why they had no desire to play for him. But then if you look at what happened with Eddie Howe, who's the first in, he's the last out, and he does tactics, he does the studies. And this, I suppose, goes on to what we were discussing on professional and the Amigos last time, was sometimes we should be grateful for what we've got, be careful what we wish for. And the fact that we've got someone like Eddie Howe who's so studious and always wanting to do better. She's not perfect, but none of us are. But yeah, me, just think just over 4 years ago, we had Steve Bruce at the helm and we were winless. That's where we were.
I used to like the ones that used to come from that fullback we got from the Spurs, Rose. You know, Bruce would be on the telly up here telling everybody how hard they were working, and Rose would be in London on his 3-day holiday telling the whole of the South Coast that he only worked 3 days a week.
He signed Rose, George, but then he was looking to buy Quality Street as well, wasn't he? He thought he would get the chocolates in.
Yeah.
Alan McKenzie's probably sitting at home wearing his Christmas pajamas. He's matching Christmas pajamas with Muzza, and he's put this up there because he obviously wants me to sing the song, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't.
Voice keeps on calling me down the road. That's where I'll always be. Every stop I make, I'll make a new friend. Just turn around and I'm gone again. Maybe tomorrow you want to settle down. Until tomorrow, I'll just keep moving on. Do, 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 do. There you go, Alan.
Don't play in Scotland now. I'll tell you the words if you sing it.
I may do it on the Christmas do on Friday. Fantastic, good stuff. We're about 50 minutes into the show. 700 of you watching across all platforms. If you're watching on anything but YouTube, please jump onto our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. We're promising they're not all as mad as this. We have some very calm, sedate ones, and then we've got the fans forum. But yeah, join in, please. We've got 10 minutes before the interval. I just want to pay tribute to 2 players from yesteryear, lads, and I know you both, you all know plenty about these 2. The Newcastle United Foundation, we used to do a thing called we used to do an annual Player of the Year's award when I very first went into doing events, and we did a couple at the club. We did quite a few of them at the Fed. We toasted the very best of them. We had a Hall of Fame, a black and white Hall of Fame, I called it. About 6-7 years ago, I think maybe probably 10 or 11 years ago, the foundation started their own Player of the Year award, and we respectfully stood aside because I thought it is better that the club does this. I mean, me doing it is great as an event manager at the time, but for the club and the foundation to take it on board, I think it's right because it's raising money for the foundation and it's the club recognising the legends, not just the fans. Mine was completely different, but there's been some great names over the years who've been inducted, and 2 great names from one of my favourite periods as a fan, a trophyless one, but one which gave us a lot of entertainment. Glenn Roeder and John Anderson, both inducted last night into the Hall of Fame. Mitch, like me, you will have some great memories of these 2. And it's great to see that the club, for me, the foundation have got it right this year. They're not giving it to anyone after the entertainers. They've inducted 2 people who, I'm afraid some of the people at the club, when you would mention Glenn Roeder, would probably say who. But two legends, 2 stalwarts at a time when football was a lot different.
Very different, and we're part of Keegan's first time here as a player. And really, we could have gone on and done a lot more, and they could have been part of something bigger themselves, bar for a couple of sliding doors moments, really. Roeder, for somebody, another one who totally belies the myth that we only want Geordies here. More of a Londoner you couldn't get than Glenn Roeder, but absolutely black and white and absolutely one of us. and also beloved not just as a player, but in his managerial role. Somebody who it's fascinating to hear players who played underneath him talk about setting standards even in terms of dress and behaviour. These kind of things matter. They matter to us more than people realise, I think. And then John Anderson, my God, I've had some amazing times with John Anderson. The role as chair of the trust and being involved with doing fans groups and fanzines and stuff with you over time, Steve. That's brought me and Ando together. I've hosted events alongside Ando. He must have been an absolute nightmare of a player to play against, because honestly, there's twice whilst having a joke with him, he digged me in the thigh and left us with a dead leg for an hour. Like, Christ, that was just a playful tag. What would that be like if I was playing against you? He can't help himself in commentary. What a wonderful co-commentary he gives on the BBC. He shares every bit of the ups and downs with us. He's one of us. And again, he's not a Geordie, but he's one of us. And so they've picked two very interesting people, and people who span. One of the things I've been critical of late, I think there's elements in the club would like to forget that we exist. And what I mean by we is our generation, as a fan base.
Yeah.
And they're two people who I grew up with, who I loved and love to bits. And they deserve a place in the Hall of Fame. And if that's the start of the club making amends to different generations of the fan base, I'm all for it. I'm here for it. And thank you, because that needs doing. The Roeder shuffle. How many of us have fallen over their own bloody ankles trying to do that in the school playground and ended up with bloody grazed cheekbones and things like that? And John Anderson is one of those players who would have played in every bloody position if he'd been asked to. I think, wasn't he before Steve Watson in the old days of wearing 1 to 11?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the player who won the most amount of numbers for Newcastle United? And then Watson surpassed him by doing 2 to 14, I think. And he could have won one at one point, but didn't. I think Anderson's the second one after that, because he would have played anywhere for Newcastle United because he would have just given his all. And I think that's the measure of the man. I think that's why when he gets frustrated with players, when you hear that frustration coming out on the co-commentary, it's because he's pouring his heart into it.
Yeah.
And I think, commendable, and indeed always one of us, and now cemented in the Hall of Fame, and he's earned that.
George, happy memories of the two, two lads inducted last night.
Absolutely. I'll just go on with John Anderson straight after Neil, and Neil said it. He's grown into being a Geordie like so many outsiders have. Good player, 100% anywhere he played, and a gentleman both on and off the pitch. And if we're talking about hard tacklers, you'd go a long way to find somebody who would tackle as hard as John Anderson did. You got to go back to people like Jimmy Schooler and those two who would have that sort of bite on somebody's leg when they go in for a tackle, a fair tackle, not a siving tackle like the cowards that do it now. So yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic, pleasure to watch, and a pleasure to talk to even now when his career's all over. But cementing a new career, a very important career to pass on to others by doing the stuff on the radio. So, John Anderson deserves everything. And I have to say, this is one of the times when I recall how what a pleasure it's been. You asked me to do Those Were the Days. And, over 20 years of games we've done. And when it came to Anderson's time, the number of times when I did the read-ups for what I was writing and what I was saying, that the player of the game or the player of the match or whatever was John Anderson, was enormous, absolutely enormous. So that's another great pleasure that comes out of it. And the other nice thing for me is, of course, that when I first met him going into the Irish Centre with the NUFC Matters lads, he didn't know us from Adam. But when I said I was Geordie Dentist's dad, I was his friend. It was lovely. But no, great guy, and thoroughly deserved. I mean, one of the things that irritates me a little bit is people get these big accolades that they got. They get, and you think to yourself, well, how did they pick him? Why him? Like the 100 best players you did the other day, Steve. When I look at that list closely, there's one or two on. I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing there? But never mind. Not John Anderson. He go on to be a legend, and he's in the right place as far as I'm concerned.
I'm working on my top 100 Newcastle players. I'm gonna bring that up on this channel over the Christmas period. So that's going to be interesting. Great. Go on, Glenn Roeder.
Glenn Roeder. Well, the thing that for me, two things is the Glenn Roeder shuffle, and his demeanour as the manager on the line for Newcastle United, immaculate. Glenn Roeder was always immaculate. And he represented Newcastle in a very particular way, in a way in which I thought was absolutely super. We'd not had somebody who used to dress as smartly in blazer and tie always on the touchline from way back in the George Martin in the 49-50 season. I think was the only one that would stand anywhere near him. In fact, there's some famous occasions when George Martin wore his bloody Homburg on the bench. But Glenn Roeder, always smart, always immaculate, always well spoken. We've had managers. Well, the one manager that got me into this internet stuff was bloody the Irishman that with his 4-letter expletive explosion about Newcastle United. And set me off on writing to every channel possible to knock them back, but never mind. But Glenn Roeder, absolute gentleman and a really talented player. The Glenn Roeder shuffle, the only person I know that comes anywhere near the Glenn Roeder shuffle is a man called Bruno, who happens to be playing today. He's the only one that can do that sort of thing. With aplomb, as we get used to saying, and Glenn Roeder was just outstanding. And again, another nice man, another man from a totally different part of the world, who became an adopted Geordie and deserved every accolade he got, and he certainly deserves this one as well.
Good stuff, Stu.
Who do you want us to talk about first?
Over to you, mate. Whichever you want to talk about first. Doesn't have to be in any order.
Right, okay, then as George finished on Glenn Roeder, I'll continue with that. This Hall of Fame thing, it's a relatively new thing for us. But the two choices they made, it's more from like our era. And I thought it was a great decision. It was like it's given a nod to like football was before the Premier League formed in 1992. And you don't have to be World Cup winners or like X amount of international caps to be respected and lauded for your club. And these two were both proper club men. If you look at Glenn Roeder, he was player, captain, manager. I'm sure we talked about it after his death. He would have took the nets down if he was asked to, But The one missing from me, because this was in my formative years when I was allowed to go to the match by myself. Well, without parents, didn't go by myself. It was mostly me in the heat. There was another one that would have been great. I don't know if you can only induct so many people per year, etc. But for me, Roeder, Ando, and Dave McCreary, those were the three mainstays of that team. And I think Dave McCreary would be a worthy addition to it too as well. But with Glenn Roeder, he was before his time, wasn't he? You know, he never looked like a centre half, because centre halves then were like your Terry Butchers and, you know, like snarling and stuff like that. And he just seemed like a gentleman that would like stop and open the door for an elderly woman, or take his jacket off and lay it over a puddle so a lady could walk across the road. That's how he came across. But for me, he was the epitome of the adage is you're not given respect, you have to earn it. And I think it was Barry Hogan put in the chat there. How he role modelled Gaza. You know, and Gaza has the utmost respect for him. You know, everyone knows Gaza is like, he was nicknamed the Cloud Prince by the media, and he does like to have a bit laugh and joke. But when he talks about Glenn Roeder, he doesn't joke. He doesn't try and make a quick quip. It's just pure respect, and that's the measure of the man. But how much would Roeder be worth now in this new world of football playing centre halves? And that's why I said he was before his time. Imagine that. Imagine him in this Newcastle team now at his best. I'm not even exaggerating. You're talking 80 million plus. That's what his value would be in the way the football's played now. But he was always dignified. He was always respectful, even when things were against him. You know, he would always be polite, and that for me is the measure of a man. And on the other side of it, if you look at someone like Ando, I was thinking there when Mitch was speaking and George was speaking, how do you sum up someone like John Anderson? And I'm sure I've mentioned on the podcast before, my daughter's mother used to babysit for Ando's kids. He's very, very much in the Irish community. You know, I'm sure Steve Hasty will vouch, you know, he doesn't go into the Irish chat and say, hey, I'm John Anderson, I used to play for Newcastle. He is one in all, he's equal. And again, a very, very respectful person, but he's the sort of person that you want to know. You want to say, I've met him. You want to say, he's my friend. And you know, when John Anderson played for Newcastle, he was all of us on the pitch. You know, he had the same attitude we would have, where no matter how bad he was playing or how good he was playing, his head never dropped and he would give 100%. And if you look at what this is probably me sounding like jumpers for goalposts, but if you look at some of the salaries the players pick up these days, and you can see them just toss it in, John Anderson never did that. And I think George mentioned there, how many times did he score for a predominantly right back or centre back? He scored a lot of goals for us, you know, and some of them were very important. But he was probably the Stuart Pearce of the time, you know, where he would roll his sleeves up and he'd never give in. And so I thought there were two outstanding choices. And as I said earlier, I'd like to see Dave McCreary get inducted into this Hall of Fame as well. So compliments to the panel who chose them. And I know Glenn Roeder is posthumously, but I just hope that his family or someone, a member of his family, were there to take the accolade, or at least are made aware of it. Because sometimes when you're not there anymore, you think you're forgotten. And for those who watched Glenn Roeder play, they'll never forget what he did for us as a player and a manager. And John Anderson is a true living legend of Newcastle. He came to Tyneside, like many have, but never left. This is now his home and his children's home and his grandchildren's home. And just because he doesn't speak with the same accent as us, he's as Geordie as all of us. And if you ever do listen on the commentary, you can hear the passion, you can hear the frustration, and he played like how he does his commentary. And I'm just going to keep repeating myself now. So fantastic choices, and thoroughly deserve the pair of them.
Yeah, Chris Cushion's in the chat. We gave a tribute to his father, Russell Cushion, at the start of the show. He says, great words at the start for me dad. Cheers, guys. Thank you, Chris. And we'll hope you're coping. It is tough. Went through it with my mum, of course, a couple of years ago. So hopefully catch up with you soon, mate. But thoughts with you. Steve, just a little tribute to the two inductees last night, John Anderson and Glenn Roeder, the late, great Glenn Roeder, captain of the club, of course, at one point, and Newcastle United manager.
Yes, Glenn Roeder was the cause of probably dozens of broken ankles on Sunday football.
I played against John Anderson.
I'm sure you did, but Glenn Roeder caused many a broken ankle from people trying to do the Roeder shuffle on a pitch. It was totally fact. A lovely guy, a really one of those nice guys of football.
Unassuming, I think.
Yeah, nobody ever had a bad word to say about Glenn Roeder. I met Glenn in the boardroom once at Newcastle in a cup game. We were playing Sheffield Wednesday in the cup, and had a really good chat with him. And he was just, I think he was like an advisor to Sheffield Wednesday at the time. But he was there, and he was talking about Newcastle. And he's trying not to because he was with Sheffield Wednesday, but he couldn't stop himself, you know. And of course, obviously, I was with Bill Corcoran at the time and Colin Whittle, and we wanted to talk about Newcastle United, you know. So that was really good. It was nice to spend just 10 minutes with somebody who you sort of idolised as a young player. John, totally different kettle of fish. John, hard as nails. I mean, Glenn was I think before I finish on Glenn, we've got to remember Glenn looked after Gaza. Barry Hogan, but it was Glenn that actually, I think, had to pick up the pieces after Paul smashed Glenn Hoddle's room up after he told him he wasn't going to Euro 98 because he was on the England
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, mate. You're right.
People
In La Manga,
yeah, and people forget that Glenn had it wasn't just Newcastle United, but he was great servant for QPR. But then when he came to us, he held that team together, that sort of 94 team, 84 team, that squad, because of his persona, I think, because of his personality, and because of his quiet nature. You know, there was an awful lot of characters that were in the squad at the time. John, totally different kettle of fish, as I say. I mean, I like John. We've always got on well with John. Mitch and I, obviously, a little bit of history. He used to travel with us, and we used to go all over the place with the NUFC, the road shows and stuff like that. He was a great supporter of the fans and what we're trying to achieve at the time, and we kept that going. And not just as a footballer, but as a pundit, as a co-commentator. That relationship that he had with Mick Lowes was second to none. But he's then transcended it with Razor and on BBC Newcastle, and they're a great little combination, and it's good to listen to for the away games if you're not there and you're travelling in the car and you tune in and you listen to them. And what John does is he tells you straight. If a player's not performing well, he'll tell you. If a player makes a mistake or misses an opportunity, he's the first one to say it like we would as fans, because that's what he is now. But he was a great servant for the football club. It's funny, I mentioned him last week on the show because we were talking about situations, and you remember I mentioned about Jim Smith and going to sell him to Sunderland, and Jim Smith got sacked 3 days later once Ando reported to Gibbo, who then reported it up the line. But that was the way it was in those days, you know. So it's great. I mean, it's interesting. There's not that many players in this Hall of Fame. I mean, I was just looking it up there. I think there's 30 or 31 players out of, in a club that's had a history of 133 years and counting. And we've only got like over 30 players in a Hall of Fame. And it's quite a dark grouping as well, you know.
It's just reflective of how long it's been going, mate. I think inductees into the Hall of Fame should only be two a year. That tends to be, if you look at American sports, that's how it works. And most of these Hall of Fames are inducted no more than a couple a year. mainly so those being inducted can get their fair praise during that period. That's their year,
Yes.
so to speak. Whether we do it right in terms of that's another matter. But I think what these editions do for me show that the club, or at least the foundation and people awarding these, are looking at a wider and more important group of players for the fan base as a whole.
It's interesting you say that, because up until 2011, there was never a thought in the club's mind to do a Hall of Fame.
No.
And that idea...
Where did that come from?
That idea of the Hall of Fame came from NUFC Fans United, when we would have meetings with, who was it? Lee Marshall. And we said, why don't you have a Hall of Fame? Because there was a Hall of Fame going to be set up by NUST, if you remember. It was part of the NUST remit. Because all of the things that the club didn't do, NUST were going to do under the More Than a Club and More Than a Trust, when we became a supporters trust. And there was a whole raft of ideas that we put forward, including running our own Hall of Fame. And I think the trust ran it for 2 years, and then I don't know what happened. I was gone by then, and then after that, we canvassed and tried to push and said, why doesn't the club run its own? The supporters trust trying to run one, and it seems to have fallen on its feet, on its face. So why doesn't the club do one? And you know, lo and behold, next thing we knew, it wasn't the club itself; it was the foundation. There is a separation, remember, between club and foundation. It's very tenuous, but we're told many times whenever anything wants to be done that you have to go through the foundation, not the club. And then you walk in and it's the same people sitting there regardless. But that's a different tale entirely.
Would be a story for another day.
Yes, exactly. But it's great that it's happening now. It's great that we have this honor, if you like, that, you know, and the fact that it's players from a generation that, you know, means so much to our age group. I think is this time round is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, we are well and truly into the second half of the show. I'm going to give the lads a break. We'll have the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk.
Okay, it's that time of the show. If you are easily offended, go and put the kettle on, go outside and take the dog for a walk, go and do something less boring instead. And this is the disclaimer. None of these tweets are endorsed by me, Steve Wraith, the owner of NUFC Matters, or any of the panel. We might laugh at them, but that doesn't mean we endorse them. And plenty in this week. I love this. I've been sent this on numerous occasions. This is an actual news report where there's a bathroom intruder. And this is an actual video, but people have sent us the screenshot. Honestly, if an artist...
It's the side eye.
It's absolutely brilliant. So thanks to everybody who sent us that. The fact that Michael Jackson had to ask Annie if she was okay nearly 100 times in 4 minutes makes me think she probably wasn't okay. Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Yeah, just in case you didn't get the song reference. I refuse to go bungee jumping. I came into this world because of a broken rubber. I'm not leaving because of one. And when the machines rise up against the humans, just pray to God you're nowhere near a dildo factory. Sound advice from Jimmy Moore. And sometimes you run into people who change your life for the better. Those people are called bartenders, which I'm sure the lads will wholeheartedly agree with. This baby, incidentally, looks like he's ready to pour you a pint at the pub.
Looks like Churchill, doesn't it?
It does actually. Oh, yes. You're Winston Churchill. Yeah, we will fight them on the beaches. And how cold was it when you left for work this morning? I love this as well. I almost had a heart attack this morning.
Brilliant.
Just look like a tiger, of course. And Christmas tip: wrap empty boxes and put them under the tree. And every time your child acts up, throw one in the fireplace. The woman replies, "What if I run out of kids?" And this person must have been at Taco Bell.
Oh,
One for Neil here. When you're halfway through your rectal exam, and remember you're at the dentist. And Handyman's crack camouflage. I do like that, by the way. It's a good idea for a t-shirt. And why is there plastic cover on the cucumber? The answer, so that it can be eaten after use. It's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious. My neighbour obviously doesn't watch porn. She asked me to come and fix her sink, and I've been here for an hour and a half, and I'm still fixing the damn sink. And I may not be able to find Bigfoot, but I'm pretty sure I've just found his mum.
yeah.
Big feet, them, like you wonder how swan hunters close with feet like that. And don't let anything hold you back. And I mean anything. There's white people, and then there's Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, me. That's me.
God, he is, isn't he? He is. It's you, is it, Steve?
I
To look alike. And greeting a dog, here's what you do, and here's what you don't do.
Yeah.
Good tip, that. Magnum PI. Magnum PI. Haven't had one of them for a while, so thanks for that. And another actor's life destroyed by drugs and alcohol. Feeling a bit peckish? Why not have this? It's roll-on deodorant.
Oh, God.
Yeah, me.
And the world is not yet ready for the dog hot.
Ah,
I do like something inventive as well. This is obviously the 50th anniversary of Jaws this year, so somebody decided to do that with a watermelon. Very clever, very good. And I do like the odd invention. I haven't had one of these for a while. They've finally done it, lads.
Oh,
Somehow we ended up here in life. Apocalypse on one side and having to go to work on the other. Yep, we're slap bang in the middle. And I told him I used to be in an abusive relationship. Now he's hugging me like I was the victim. And when you asked for purple rain but got lavender mist.
Oh.
Coming up to a few signs. I know people like the signs. This is a good one in the toilets.
eh?
I know. I've got no idea what it is, lads, and I don't want to know. Masturbating handyman gets off. Why did they're definitely
Very good.
AI headlines these? And I did like this one as well. As a kid, did you ever knock on doors and just run off before anyone could answer? If you answered yes, we could have a job for you. And teacher, if you don't study hard at school, you won't grow up to be successful. Me and the boys 10 years later. Gary Spivey, anime tiddles expert. James Dunstan, meme historian. Alex, former child. Bill Margot, pornography historian. Real job. And if any of you had been called Stephen Dave, the group would have been called Asda.
Excellent.
Interesting fact. I see a silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the Van Dangle?
No. Jesus.
Excellent. I prefer to do a little snowboarder. You would be better off sandpapering a lion's ass in a pair of pork chop panties than being caught on the other side of this fence. It's in a field next to Jimmy Moore's. And notice to riders, failure to be at the bus stop at the scheduled time will result in missing the bus. Stating the bleeding obvious. Rooms to let for
Was
working.
that advice from the club for people going to Marseille?
Probably, yeah.
Just...
Rooms to let for working couples or for girls. For more info. Exactly. And we're currently not tossing any salads. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Right.
Time for a Star Wars treat. This guy in America got dressed up for Halloween. He went the full 9 yards.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Well played, that man. Well played. And did you know there was a Roman emperor with constant cold? Oh, what was his name? Julius Caesar. Time for your weekly viz tip. Cat owners save money on expensive cat carriers. Simply tie your pet's tail to one of its back legs to make a handy carrying loop.
No.
Don't do that at home, kids. And this has got to be the worst scam on Facebook this week. Noel Gallagher. Hi, it's me, Noel Gallagher from Oasis. I'm stuck in Switzerland in the snow and I need you to cash up me €1,000 so I can buy a snowboard to escape, else Oasis can't reform and we will have to let everyone down. Leham is here too. All right, our kid. It is me, Leham Gallagher. I am stuck in the snow too. How do I know you're the real Noel Gallagher? Champion supernova in the sky. Wow, it's really you. Another one of those Facebook names. Loads of people send these, but the reason you don't feature is because I've had them on before, but I definitely haven't had this one. McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and a Pizza Hut.
Hey.
We'll finish with this one today. Problem Child. Hi, Sheila. I'll be free after my morning shit, if that's convenient with you, about 11 a.m. Lucy. Shift. I mean shift. Oh, God. Thank you to everybody who sent them in. Some great ones this week. If you want to send one by email, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Special mention to Peter Atkinson tonight. He's been bugging us a load via email. Peter, you're a bit like Mark Byers. You probably only get 1 out of 10 that I can use on the show. You need to tone them down a little bit. And a big shout out to Mark, who sent us a couple today, which might feature in the near future. But thanks for sticking by us with Tweet of the Week, and thanks for providing some good entertainment.
Before you move on, Steve, you were talking about Ando before, and it just reminded me. Ando played for the Republic against Brazil in 1987, and not long after that was signed Mirandina, who had played in the same game, right? And what happened was, if I remember rightly, Ando telling me, when Mirandina arrived, obviously he couldn't speak a word of English, and he had a translator with him, and he came into the training ground and immediately saw Ando, and then turned round and the translator said he recognised you. Yeah, and Ando thought that meant he was famous in Brazil because he had played against him, and the Mundina then explained to the interpreter, "No," he says, "you're a dirty bastard."
Great stuff. Yeah, he also made a comment about Aussie Ardiles, which of course we don't endorse. But
No.
yeah, he did say that it was a pity he wasn't on the Belgrano. That was what he said at a talk-in once. But yeah, him and Ozzy Ardiles did not get on at all. He ruined his time at Newcastle, unfortunately. And I know, great guy, great legend, does very well on Radio Newcastle. Him and Razor, as you've rightly said. So well done to the lads again. I make no apologies for congratulating them again. Okay, we're going to look ahead to the match. We've got no Toon Stato this week and no Joe, so it is just us to look over Newcastle's game against Manchester City, which is a 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports this coming Saturday. Newcastle are bidding to record their 6th successive home win in all competitions, during which they have conceded just a single goal. Eddie Howe has overseen 6 home wins in a row, just once since arriving at St James's Park between February and April 2022. Team news, well, it's a bit early at the moment, but Nick Pope is expected to be available after observing concussion protocols following his withdrawal at Brentford. And an update is awaited on the condition of Anthony Gordon following his withdrawal from the England squad with a recurrence of his hip problem. There's optimism that Tino Livramento could rejoin the squad following injury, but Dan Burn will be suspended following his red card at Brentford. A little bit early for Man City's team news. Kabovic remains out, but Rodri may return. Erling Haaland has scored 99 Premier League goals to date, including 14 in 11 games so far this season, 3 more than the entire Newcastle United side have managed. And as I mute George, because we're getting a bit of feedback, I think, off George at the minute, referee is Sam Barrett, the first appointment of the season for this man with Newcastle United this season, and VAR is Craig Pawson. The food bank will be in situ outside of Gallagher. Get yourself along to St James's Park before the match, and if you've got some loose change, stick it in the bucket. It's always much appreciated by the guys up there. So Mitch, will come to you first. The dice, of course, will be primed, but give us your feelings on this game first of all, mate.
We have a really important run of fixtures coming up, starting with this one, and none of them are straightforward. We could use this as a springboard. I would like to see us not be timid, because that's how I perceive we've been against Man City a few times. In the last few times we've played them, we've been timid. We give them too much respect. We are better when we ignore the hype of the opposition and we play our game than we do what we know we can do. And on our day, we can hurt people. We have to make changes. I don't think there's any excuse not to start Hall now at left back, and I think that'll bring a lot more balance to that back line, no matter who else is in it. We have a decision to make about how we support Waldemar up front and how we supply him. Are we brave enough? Are we brave enough to introduce the people going past him if he drops off? And are we brave enough to put people in the wide positions to deliver crosses he can feed off like he did for Germany? Interestingly, we've had players return to the squad who haven't necessarily been injured per se, but because of circumstances with their international teams, they've been allowed to return. And I think that can only benefit with Eddie having a majority of the squad together for a longer period of time. I would like a response. I would like a response to two of the most abjectly poor away games that we've seen for a long, long time. We're looking for answers, and like I've said in the last couple of shows I've been on with you, Eddie has a history of delivering those answers, and he needs to be allowed to deliver those answers. Chip has it all teed up for Haaland getting his 100th Premier League goal, and I would graciously give him that if he's on the wrong end of a penman.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Fabian Shaw against Haaland. I know it's not Man City on a one-man team, and Newcastle and Eddie Howe won't be thinking that at all. You know, they'll be fully aware that Rodri's going to be back. They've got so many great players who can turn games. But Fabian Shaw against Haaland, as I've chirped on all week about, his track record against Shaw is 0 goals. He's never been able to score, I don't think. Yeah, go on, Stu.
Just for the benefit of Mark Byers, so what you're saying, Steve, is Haaland scored 99 goals, but against Shaw he ain't one. There you go.
Hey, very good. I like it. Get the dice out, Mitch. Give us the dice.
The dice says...
Oh, no.
The dice
3-1.
says 3-0.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's broken, that dice. Okay, what's your prediction?
It's maybe a bit wonky, but I'll take it. I think this weekend could be an absolute humdinger, and I'm going to take us by the odd goal in 5, 3-2.
3-2, yeah. There's been some big games. Has the dice had some drink?
Possibly.
Ah, God. George?
Yeah, it would have. Mitch doesn't spill them out. There's no way the dice has had any drink.
Well, I've read and heard nothing that's persuaded us from my prediction on Monday night on the fans forum to be any different now than it was then. And I still think and still get delusional about the fact that when we play to how we can play and Eddie organises us properly, we can beat anybody. And he is absolutely right. The best way to do it is to show that we're not shy and have a go. And I'm still convinced we'll be 2-1 winners on Saturday. Haaland never does very well against Newcastle defenders. Not only has he not scored when Shaw's been in the team, but when he's been 1-1 against Jamal Lascelles, he hasn't scored either. So we've got a good record against him. And I like to see Haaland, but I like to see him better when he's frustrated. So when he goes back in the tunnel after not getting his 100th goal, then I'll be a happy little buddy.
Okay, George is going for 2-1. Stu, I know you always put 3-1 on. What's your feelings about this game?
I think, I go through the same pattern. I start the week with a really realistic prediction, and I said we'd get beat 2-0. But as it gets closer to game day, the optimism and Mr. George, my delusional partner in crime, you start thinking, well, this could happen for us and that could happen for us. But there's a question, because we have to sit here and answer questions from the audience. So I've got a really important question to ask the audience, and I'd like to make a straw poll before we finish. What should I have for my supper? Should it be the caramel wafer or the tea cake?
Okay, so anybody wants to vote on that? Anyone wants to vote on that? Put a 1 for the tea cake in the chat and put 2 for the caramel in the chat.
It's of great importance, but I'll give you a spoiler. I'll probably scram both because I need to get some fodder after the alcohol consumed last night.
I was just about to say the greedy little duck will put 1 and 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the game. You start thinking like, isn't after last night? Anything's possible. And sometimes we forget we have some really good players. I think sometimes they forget how good they are and how good they can be. And although when we do go to their place, we surrender before we even start, we always seem to give them a game up here. And we can do it. We're due a performance. We've been due a performance for months, to be honest. But it will click. The adage I used the other day was form is temporary, class is permanent. We've got to get into a stage where, right, this is us now. If we want to achieve, we can't just keep putting it off to next week or the week after or the week after and saying it'll come good. We have to start making it happen instead of waiting for it to happen. And what better opportunity? Now, I've seen comments in the chat and I've listened to things on the I nearly said wireless there, showing me on the radio. about how Man City are going to topple Arsenal for the league and stuff like that. But didn't it just get beat at Villa 1-0 2 games ago? So it shows that they can be beaten. And at the end of the day, why can't we beat them? And it's about, again, it's about attitude. And if we go in that game trying to nullify them and trying to stop them from scoring, we'll end up getting beat and probably comfortably beat. But again, in defence of Eddie Howe and in defence of the team, because I love to criticise them for everything they've achieved over the last few years, it gets darkest before the dawn. And this could be the last part of the darkness, and the dawn will be after this game. But why not wake up on Saturday morning, the sun's shining, and think, right, this is our game. And we have players now with points to prove. With the World Cup coming up, we have many players in the squad. Some are nailed on to be there. But us, i.e. Mr. A. Gordon, has watched other people, I would say, usurp him in the pecking order. And the only way he's going to get into that England squad, let alone team, is by performing well. And that's got to be good for us. And the same will be for our two fullbacks, who we know how great they are. But the way the London media goes, you know, they like to praise people who aren't from Newcastle. And as good as fullback as Reece James is, would anyone be surprised if he wasn't injured between now and the end of the season? Tino Livramento is England's future right back, but thankfully he's ours. And if he can get some minutes, even if it's just 30 minutes at the end, and then we can start playing them on Tuesday night and bring them in. And same with Lewis Hall. And I know I've said this on many occasions, Hall was our player of the season until he got injured last February. He was. We have some players that are real game changers, and if they're all at it, why can't we go and get a win? So I'm going with my delusional partner, and I'll change my 2-0 deficit to a 2-1 win. I'm with you, George.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, 2-1.
Are you voting, George? Is that what you're doing on the phone? Are you voting for 1 or 2?
I would say the Tunich tea cake's got it by a country mile, to be fair. But a lot of people are saying both. Just eat both, mate. Just eat both.
Yeah, probably both.
Steve, we'll finish with you, mate. Give us your feelings on this game against Man City. I went early on the fans forum with my prediction. I believe Newcastle will lose 2-1.
Did you? Right. This is the first of 12 out of 13 games where we're on TV, believe it or not. That's the run up until Christmas. It's an amazing run. 5:30 kickoff, great atmosphere on what is relatively an evening game, especially now it's dark so early. City, they're one of those teams that we raise our game against, and I'm hoping that we do this week. It's interesting, some of the crack in the newspapers, one or two of the reporters, the local reporters, talk about a change, talking about a big talk that's been had among Eddie and his backroom staff and various other people, and Ross Mills mentioned, and the new CEO's been mentioned, Hopkinson. So all of this is kind of, as though there's been some sort of post-mortem, but nobody's actually definitively said what this post-mortem was all about and where it's leading to. But, there's insinuations by some that there are going to be changes. I don't know whether they mean changes in formation. I don't know whether they mean changes in personnel. Whether they mean changes in key positions, attitude, whatever. But it sounds as though something's been going on over the last couple of weeks that they're hanging the hat on, but they don't know what hat they're putting on and throwing into the ring, trying to explain to us. So I find it all very mysterious. The good thing for me is that Bruno, although he was wearing international duty, was only down in London. He wasn't travelling all around the world. So that in itself, I think Bruno and Joe Linton looked as though they needed a rest, and obviously then Joe Linton picked up the injury. Tonali, he was apparently returned from Italy simply because he'd already had one booking and they didn't want him to get another booking because they knew they weren't going to be getting anywhere other than the playoffs. So that was That was the Italian manager being cautious, apparently. So that all of those little things, the sort of things that the press write up on, players being returned, and we all start panicking about injuries, and then the little postscript is that it's not that at all. There's no question that we've looked jaded. We need to raise our game. Eddie does need to find a way of bringing Valdemar into the game more in a goal-scoring opportunity mode. Not so much the player himself, but the people around him that have got to start working their socks off for him. He shouldn't need to drop deep. It reminds me of England when they were struggling and Harry Kane had to drop deep. That's the only analogy that I can think of. The lad's a great little touch player, but we've said it time and time again. He's not a centre forward. He's a number 10. He's a link man. He's the sort of person who comes late into the box and can get you goals. Unfortunately, he's having to apply the ammunition first before it gets down the wing, and then he's struggling to get into the box. But you watch his performances from Germany, where people are actually supplying him in the right areas, and if we do that, the lad will carry on getting goals. There's no question about that. Burns out suspended, so hope that Lewis Hall. Although again, Eddie's been a bit cagey. Does he mean that Lewis can't play a full 90 minutes? Does he think he's a starter, but then he's going to have to do a reshuffle? Is there anyone else who can come in at left back if there's a Burns suspension? You mentioned it earlier in the week, Steve, about Sven Botman, and he'd be the player that you would drop for Shaw, and you would be playing him alongside Chow. These are all dilemmas. The goalkeeping situation, we've now got fans clamouring, haven't we, about bringing Ramsdale in and this type of thing, and some of them are all still convinced that Pope's got concussion and he hasn't. It's been well over the 12 days. So an awful lot's been mulling around in my head, and I'm wondering whether my head is going to rule my heart or vice versa. I'm going to go for Newcastle getting back onto winning ways. I'm going to go for a 2-1 as well. I think it's the sort of game where if Eddie can get it right, if the players are on song, and I'm not saying that Man City can have an off day, but Guardiola does have a tendency to play a little bit differently against us away from home, and he plays a little bit cagier, and he has been known, if you remember in the past, to smash and grabs against us. Games where we felt as though we should have benefited from all 3 points or at least 1 point, and he's managed to salvage it. Let's hope it's not in that mode this time round, and it could be the start of, as I say, 12 out of 13 televised games where we raise our game every week ongoing. The only game we're not on TV is the home game against Burnley, by the way, which is the 3 o'clock kickoff. And after that, we've got ridiculous kickoff times all the way through until Christmas, and we've even got a lunchtime one when you're over, Stu, as well.
Yep, I'll be there. Oh, by the way, for the Fulham game, I'm in the director's box.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes.
Fantastic. Good stuff. How the
It's
other
not
half
what you know, is it? It's not what you know.
Exactly.
Great show tonight. Great show tonight. I haven't had time to cram in Rock and Rob's music review, which I was hoping to, because we had so much to talk about, obviously, with the late shout about Russell Cushion passing away. So, Rob, we will feature that either Friday when I think we're doing Ask George. Yeah, we're doing Ask George Friday, 1 o'clock. So we'll do it on Ask George to give George a little bit of a breather. But tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, as usual, Supermac and Gibbo. Saturday morning, 3's a crowd, and then Sunday night, the post-mortem for the Man City game. Hopefully a celebratory one with Stu and Mitch on Sunday night to talk about the Man City game. Thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Yep.
Hey! Take care.
Caramel.
Enjoy the match, everybody. Take care.
All the best.
Thanks so much, everybody.